All right, hello, hello, hello. Now, this weekend we had not only Mother's Day, but we had the sightings of the Northern Lights or the Aurora Borealis here in the South. Now, I never thought that I would see them in the South, much less in my own backyard, but I did, and I got some nice pictures of it. Now, the trick to getting the pictures was to set your exposure for a long exposure. I did mine for 3 seconds. I got some really pretty pictures. It didn't show up as well to the naked eye, but once you put your camera on it and put that long exposure, I got some really nice pictures. So I am going to go ahead and show you how to do this two ways, one with watercolor marker and one with just plain watercolors. I'm going to just sit my reference photo over to the side so that I'll just have it to look at. And I want to tape down my watercolor paper because this is a really wet technique. So what you'll need, I've got a foam core backer board here that I'm taping my watercolor paper to. The watercolor paper is 140-pound cold press. It's off of one of my blocks. I just took a sheet off of a block and then just cut it down small because I don't want to do too big of a painting. I just want to show you a technique to do quick Northern Lights. I've done this before on my channel, but I wanted to do it again since I was just fascinated with those Northern Lights. I've always wanted to go to Alaska so that I could see the Northern Lights, but now, hey, the Northern Lights came to me thanks to those solar flares this weekend. So I was really excited that I actually got to capture some photos of it, actually got to see it, and my daughter was here, so that made it even more special because, you know, you like to do things with your kids, special things like that, making those memories. So I'm taping it down because we're going to use a spray bottle. I've got some different colors that I've picked out of my Tombow dual tip markers. Those are watercolor markers. I also have a brush in case I need to do any kind of, you know, messing around. So I'm just going to use these as a reference. I'm going to go from dark to light. So I'm going to start off with my really deep blue here at the very top. And I'm just going to scribble some of that watercolor marker on there. And then I'm going to graduate to a lighter blue. Now you can use whatever colors you want. For my patrons of my Patreon, I will list these colors for you so that you can see what I've used. Totally up to you what you use. And then let's see, I want to go with a little bit of this yellow, I think, just a little touch of yellow here. And then I want to fade that into maybe this pale green. Let's see, maybe a little bit more yellow under that, just a little bit, just under it. Then I'm going to go with this nice pink color here. I might even put just a little bit of pink in there. I don't know, we'll see what that looks like. All right, once you get your colors down, you don't have to cover the whole paper. You can just scribble it on there. The next thing you're going to do, and this is the magic part, not really magic, but you're going to just spray it with a spray bottle, just clean water. And then you're just going to let that run however it goes. Just let it run. I'm going to tilt it just a little bit. And where I got a little bit, I don't like that color right there, so I'm just going to take my paper towel and just dab up some of that color. I just don't like how dark it is right there. And I also see that there's some marks in through there. I don't like those marks. I'm just going to come in while it's wet and just add a little bit more color there. I just want to sort of get these colors to mix in and mingle in. Spray down here a little bit more so it'll pull it down. Yes, 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 that's pretty. I'm just trying to clean up some of this excess water. And I just keep turning it to get those colors to sort of mix and mingle. And then we're just gonna let that dry. We're just gonna let it dry and we'll come back to it as soon as it is dry. So once that is all dry, I'm gonna do a tree line. I'm gonna leave the house out. I'm gonna leave the house out of it. I'm just gonna do a tree line, and the way that I'm gonna do that is with a black fine liner. Okay. So I might just draw in just sort of just a line, just so I'll know where I'm going with it. You can even make it smaller or taller. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to let a little bit of that background show through at the top. You know how trees do. You can see the sky through them where the leaves are. But at the bottom, I'm going way dark. Just color it in. You could even do this with black gouache, black watercolor on top of it. I'm just doing it with this pen. And this is sort of the view from my backyard. You could even do, if you want to add some pine trees, you can do that as well in the kind of in the background. And you just sort of do a little scumbling, like decide where the trunk is going to be, and then in a cone shape, your little branches getting larger as they come down. You can do that as well. Now I know I don't have any pine trees like this in my backyard, but I can take my artistic license and color whatever I want to color. That's my painting. So I'm just going to sort of scumble around at the very tips of these. And I may add some more pine trees because I kind of like it. I kind of like those pine trees. But then at the bottom I'm going really dark. Really, really dark. And this is going to be my version of my backyard Northern Lights when I get finished. And it's simple, it's quick. You can experiment with the colors that you use for your Northern Lights. I probably got a little dark on these, but to be honest with you, the Northern Lights did look pretty dark in my backyard. So it's just my interpretation of what I saw. And then you just come back in here and darken up some spots. Just sort of scumble it around. Now I might put another tree, another pine tree here. And just do the trunk. And then from that trunk, you just do little dots and dashes. And you want those to get larger, you know, as you go down like a cone shape. Like a Christmas tree. And again, you can use paint. You don't have to use marker. I'm just using marker because it's convenient. And I think I'm going to put one right here, just a little small one, just to balance out those other ones. So you'll just want to do just little dots, little dashes, dots, and little squiggles. Just make sure as you go down, your branches get wider, longer out. And near the trunk you want it to be a little bit darker because of course the foliage is denser there. You always want to think about things like that, like the foliage is denser towards the center of the tree, so it's going to be darker toward that trunk and lighter as you come away from it. the leaves start to spread out, the light is able to get through it. You can just keep doing some shapes in there, just give it some texture. And there is my Northern Lights with my watercolor markers. So I'm just showing you a quick way to do it with the markers, and then next I am going to show you how to do it with just regular watercolor. So there you go, a sweet little painting of Northern Lights that came to the South this weekend. Alright, in just a second I'm going to get ready and we're going to do this with just plain watercolor. Alright, so I got another piece of watercolor paper. It's just the other side of that 140-pound cold pressed paper. We're again going to tape it down because it's a really wet type of process. I hope everyone had a good Mother's Day weekend. I had an excellent Mother's Day weekend. The only thing I missed was I wish my son was here, but he did call me, so that was wonderful. He just got back from a trip where he went to Japan, Taiwan, and to China. So he is worn out, the little booger. Alright, here we go. Let's pick out some colors. I'm just going to try to pick out, I'm going to do an Opera Rose, but now if you use Opera Rose, just know that Opera Rose is a fugitive color. It will fade over time, so if you're doing a painting that you want to last for a really long time, you might want to skip using the Opera Rose. I just love the color of it, so I am going to use it. This is not a painting that I'm trying to make last. I could probably make a print of it, make a card, like something like that, but it's not a painting I would sell using fugitive colors like this. And then I'm going to use a little bit of Permanent Rose, or maybe that's called Opera Pink. Either way, it's fugitive. Now I'm talking about this one, Opera Pink. That is Permanent Rose. It is a nice permanent color. I think I'm going to use a little bit of the Bright Purple, and that's what it's called, Bright Violet. I use a little bit of that, I think. And get some of that out there. And I think maybe a little bit of, I want to go with some ultramarine blue. I think ultramarine blue. And I also might want to use some yellows, but I think I'm going to use this green gold and a little bit of probably cadmium yellow. Do I want to use cadmium yellow though, really? Or do I want to use lemon yellow? Let's go with this one. This cadmium yellow, light. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do, I've got my paper taped down because it is very wet type of application. I've got my colors that I want to use. Probably not enough colors on the palette, but I'm just going to do it by ear. I am going to go ahead and spray my whole paper with my little sprayer. Make sure it's good and wet. Get that paper really wet. And I see where it's dry right in the center, so I'm going to go ahead and wet that. I want all of my paper wet. I'm just trying to get that evenly distributed. See where it's a little dry right there. And I'm just just dripping it off onto my, right off onto my table. All right, so I want to start with the darker colors toward the top. You know, the colors get lighter as it goes toward the horizon, so I'm just going to go with my ultramarine blue. Get more of that. I'm just going to put that at the top. Nice little layer of that. A little bit of this purple. Ooh, I love that purple. Love it, love it, love it. Get a little bit more. A little bit of the rose and the pinks. Let's go with a little bit of, I want to go with like a really, maybe a turquoise blue. Just right here on the edge of this. And then come in with some of this green gold. And a little bit of that yellow. Oh, I'm gonna get a little bit more. I'm gonna darken this up at the top. I'm just gonna pat a bunch of this in here because it's gonna dry lighter. Watercolor always dries lighter than it looks when it's wet. That's a little bit too light for me. I'm gonna come back in with this purple. Darken that up as well. Bright pink. Put some of that in there. And you see it's already starting to run. And then you can just tilt it. If you want to, spray it again and let those colors run. I'm going to let these go toward the top. You want to try to clean off your tape edge, because if it dries, once it starts to dry, if your tape edge has some wetness on it, it'll cause a bloom that you may not like. So you want to be mindful of that. And I'm just rolling it around, trying to get it to mix how I want it. I think I am going to add just a little bit more of this pink up in here. And you can do this as long as it's really wet and you won't have any problems. Now if you start to let it dry and you start adding colors, you're going to probably get blooms that you don't want. So make sure you're keeping it really wet while you're doing this. I'm just adding a little bit more purple. I think I'm going to come in here with a little bit more of this yellow. Just let it seep together. Just roll it around, letting those colors mix. Add a little bit more of this blue up here. I might even add just a touch of indigo. Oh yeah, that's perfect. I'm putting a little bit of indigo just right along the edges up here. You can even spray it just a little, get it to move some more. Alright, now I'm just going to clean up these tape edges because as it dries, I do not want that to have back runs in it. I want it to stay kind of nice like it is. Alright, we're going to let that dry and then I will come right back. Alright, we have it all dry, so we are going to take, ooh, that's wet under there. I don't want that to back run. Although this is just a fun little painting, it's not anything, you know. It's not going to be hanging in a museum, for sure. But it is a fun little experiment, and it teaches you how the colors interact with each other. How it dries lighter. Like I told you, it's much lighter than it was when it was wet. So now we have that, so we are going to do the same thing. We're going to do some foliage at the bottom. I think I'm going to make this foliage a little bit smaller, like taking up less of the plane of the paper. Just kind of draw that in. And you can use black watercolor. Let's see, do I have black here? Yeah. You can use black watercolor for this. Make sure this is completely dry. If you don't, it's going to bleed and not look good. We don't want that. You know, I should have painted this on before I moved the tape, but I'm not going to worry about it. Just going to be as careful as I can not to go outside that tape line. I have confidence in myself that I can do that. And I'm trying to make those edges of the trees, you know, jiggity jaggedy. That's one of those watercolor technical terms, jiggity jaggedy. We're not even worried about smooth edges, hard edges, blended edges, soft edges. We're worried about jiggity jaggedy edges, and we would like to have some jiggity jaggedy edges. And I'm just going to go ahead and outline this so that I can try not to go into my white border with my black paint. And you can hear Dorian, he is cheering us on. And you might want to do maybe 2 layers of the black paint so that it's nice and dark, because you want that really good contrast. I could probably even use a bigger brush and cover more area faster instead of being all this little fussy with it. And I think I'm going to add some pine trees into this one as well. I just think they add a nice vertical line, draws your eye up toward that sky, and just gives a little bit more interest. But I am going to switch to a different brush because this one is the point is not pointy enough for what I want. Or no, I'm just going to switch to this really small detail brush. I'm going to pick up my black, get it fully loaded. And I think I am going to do my first one over here. So I'm just going to do a line for my trunk. And start at the top. And then just work my way down. Making sure those branches, again, are getting a little bit wider as you go down that trunk, like a Christmas tree. And of course, make it a little bit darker toward the trunk, where that foliage is just a little bit denser, less light comes through there. I might make this one just a little bit taller. And I'm just using 2 black watercolor. You can mix your own black for this, but I find the flatness of the two black works perfect for what we are trying to capture here. So usually I don't use my two blacks, but for this I think it's perfect. And this is simple. Very beginners can do this. It's so simple. It's just wet and wet technique, and then you let it dry, and then you just add a little bit of black foliage, and you have a nice little painting. You can make this into a card. You can do all kinds of things. I'm just going to add a little bit of thinner foliage where you can really see the light through it, just to add a little bit more contrast as well. And I think over here I'm going to do some smaller pine trees. Probably do one right here, here, and then I don't know, do I want it to be taller or shorter? Let's go taller. And then of course you just start it at the top and work your way down. You're just doing little scumbling, that's what I call that. Just sort of touching the brush to the paper, kind of tapping it. I'm gonna go ahead and start this one too, since we're side by side now. Those birds in the background, they are crowing at each other, my little doves. And we're going to do one more thing to these two paintings. I'll show you just as soon as I get these little trees in. I love my little trees. My happy little trees, as Bob Ross says. My little trees are happy. They're happy to be out here witnessing the northern lights, as we all should be. If you got to see them, I hope you got to see them. If you didn't, well, I don't know what to tell you. Go to Alaska. Go to the north where you can see them regularly. I'm just so excited that they came here. I'm going to do a little bit of foliage down here that's sort of, you know, scumbly. It's a little thin. And I'm running out of paint on my brush, so it's giving it sort of a dry brush look, and I like that look. I'll make this a little bit darker toward the bottom, because of course it's going to be really dark at the bottom of these trees because no light is really penetrating as well down here where all the foliage is overlapping, so you'll want that to be a little bit darker. And the same on the other one, we want to go a little darker at that bottom part. Okay, I really like this. Now I am going to use my larger brush and go just put a little bit more of another layer of the black here. Like I said, I want it to be really contrasty. I want it to be really dark at the bottom here. So I'm doing another layer of the black, just, you know, just on this bottom part. I know y'all can hear Dorian back there. He is trying to get Sybil to have a little date with him, but she is not interested right now. But he is a loud little sucker. I'm just about out of black paint, so we're going to be finished here in a minute because I'm not going to put any more out on my palette right now. Ah, perfect. beautiful northern lights. So let me move some of this stuff and show you what we're going to do next, which is another easy part. Because in my reference photos, now this is the one with the marker, it's a lot more saturated. This is the one with the watercolor. I like both of them. I think the watercolor one I might like better, mostly because I put too much color on this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some of the stars in the sky using my jelly pen. And I'm just going to do little dots here and there, just to add some stars. You can do some clusters of stars if you want, because the stars seemed like they were really bright in the sky to me, brighter than normal when the northern lights were happening in my backyard. So I'm just doing dots. Again, you can do little clusters here and there if you want to. Up to you. I don't know if you can see those dots, but they make a big difference. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Yeah, the stars look better. Make it look a little better. So you can just do stars just by dotting the paper with your jelly roll pen. Make little clusters of stars. You can even map out the star constellations if you want to, if you're that creative. I'm not that creative. I'm not doing all that. I'm just putting some stars in there, and there you go. 2 easy ways to do the northern lights. Thanks for watching, and thank you to my patrons. Without you, I could not keep my channel running, and I appreciate all of your support.